Welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show, hosted by Mason Kern. He keeps his nose to the ground to report on what's trending in professional and college sports, to inform, enlighten, and entertain. And now it's
the Sports Watchdog.
The Sports Watchdog, Mason Kern.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on KDUS AM 1060 Phoenix. As always, I'm your host Mason Kern, joining you every Sunday, and it's going to be another exciting episode of the show we got on tap for you today, talking NBA, college, maybe a little high school basketball action as we dive into the world of the hardwood here. You know it's my favorite sport, you know it's your favorite show, so we're going to get right into it here. It's going to be a great time. Let's get started.
10 magical years of wonder, 10 enchanted years of light begins at the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess on November 26th. This iconic AAA 5-diamond resort becomes the most festive place this side of the North Pole during its annual Christmas at the Princess 5-week festival. It begins with tree lighting on November 26th through New Year's Eve. This year will feature event favorites like the glistening 4-story musical tree, desert ice skating rink, Princess Express trains, lagoon lights, holiday characters, and Santa's secret headquarters, all available nightly throughout the season. New experiences for 2019 include a glimmering Winterland, new food and drink options, and more. Continue a family tradition or create a new one by joining our friends at the Princess to enjoy fire pits, igloos, photos with Santa, and more. Special packages and experiences are available. For more information, visit scottsdaleprincess.com/Christmas.
Hey there, you're listening to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio AM 1060. I'm your host, Mason Kern, and thank you so much for being here with me today. Joining us now is an exciting guest, former NBA All-Star center Mark Eaton. The Utah Jazz took a chance on Mark, who was an untested prospect coming out of UCLA, having selected him as the 72nd pick in the 4th round of the 1982 NBA draft. His 7'4", 290-pound stature surely played a role there. And that bet paid off, as Mark ultimately became one of the most defensively prominent players in NBA history. He still currently holds the record for blocks in a season with 456, and also career block averages with 3.5 per game. His defensive prowess led to an All-Star berth in 1989 and 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1985 and 1989 as well. Mark's entire NBA career was spent with the Jazz. Throughout 875 games, he scored 5,216 points, grabbed 6,939 rebounds, and blocked 3,064 shots. At the time of his retirement, he ranked second all-time in league history for total block shots, only behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's career total of 3,189. But Abdul-Jabbar played 1,560 games compared to Mark's 875. Since his retirement, Mark has become a corporate speaker and published author, and he's here to catch us up on his post-NBA endeavors, his book, and also share some insights about the NBA. Hey, Mark, welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Mason. It's great to be on your show today.
Yeah, thank you again so much for coming on, like I said. So, first off, Mark, I know, like I said, you've become a prolific speaker since your NBA days. So, what exactly is your speaking platform, and who is the typical audience?
Well, I've spent the last 9 or 10 years doing mostly corporate motivational speaking on teamwork. I do a program called The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team, and I travel around the country, reach a wide variety of industries and people, and the platform has really been one of helping people get rid of internal competition and sharing with them my crazy story of how I became a basketball player starting out as a 21-year-old auto mechanic in Southern California.
Yeah, obviously a really cool story there, the kind of rise and then your rise to success in the NBA. So, Mark, if you were to boil it all down, what would you say your main message is, and how does it help those in business, really?
Well, my main message is really looking at teamwork from the inside out. So I have the unique advantage of playing team at the highest level. And a lot of people in business use the term teamwork all the time. You know, we're a team, we're a team, we're a team.
Definitely.
But don't really understand it at the level that I do and from the experiences I've had. And so I share that in 4 distinct points with the audience, sharing what worked for me and how I became a successful player as well as a successful team member, and how our team ended up winning and having a run of 20 consecutive playoff appearances based on these 4 commitments, and how they are going to apply to your business.
And so you mentioned those 4 commitments now, and I know that's the title of the book you authored, the 4 commitments of a winning team. So tell us more about what we're going to gain from reading this book, and then why it's different from other leadership and success books out there.
Well, I think what is unique about my message is this is something I lived. It's not something I studied or read about. This is something I actually did. And so these commitments are distinct traits and skills and things that you can use immediately to improve your life and your business and take yourself to the next level. So I focus on things like, how important it is to really understand and know your role on the team and how critical that is to only your success and your team's success, and as well as your commitment to the people around you. The more you make other people look good, the better you're going to look to them, and the more your customers are going to appreciate that as well. And so the basic premise is there's just 4 simple steps that you can utilize to, I think, dramatically improve things at your company, in your business, and your personal life.
Well, you mentioned role on a team, and I would definitely say that's very important, just knowing your role within a team, because it's obviously no I in team. But now, Mark, shifting to your NBA career, obviously the transition must have been pretty tough from your college years, then immediately going to the NBA, and obviously change is never easy as it is. So how did you adjust so quickly and then so well, really?
Well, it was a challenge coming out of college because I sat at the end of the bench and I didn't play very much. And, the Utah Jazz took a chance on me. My junior college coach and I actually cold called NBA teams looking for a tryout. Wow. And the Jazz were somewhat interested, and we sent them a very brief highlight tape of my very brief college career. And they ended up drafting me in the 4th round, like you mentioned. When I came to the Jazz, they were a bad team in a bad market. I mean, we used to give away posters of other teams' players to get people to come to the arena, right? And so Frank Layden, who was the coach and general manager, gave me a chance. He said, look, if you come to camp early, work with our coaches, get on our weight training program, get on our running program, he goes, I'll give you a chance for 1 year, and we'll just see what happens. And so he did, and I did my part. I got here early. I worked with the coaches. I thought I was in pretty good shape when I showed up. Well, I wasn't even close. And so I did the little things that he had asked me to do, and by the middle of the season, I was the starting center of the NBA. So it took a lot of extra work and time, but he was willing to give me a chance to kind of, get my feet wet out there, and, I improved, and so did the team.
I think it's all about getting that chance, like you said. I mean, you put in the hard work, and you got the results, and the results showed. So that's definitely something that our listeners can take with stride. And with your large frame, obviously, even in the pro basketball circuit, how were you able to kind of utilize that to your advantage? Because obviously, I'm sure you were much bigger than some of the other players you were going head to head against.
Well, I learned a very key lesson when I was in college, and that the summer between my junior and senior year, we used to play pickup games at the men's gym at UCLA, and I was just trying to compete out there, and I'm trying to keep up with these much faster, smaller players, and trying to figure out where my spot is out there on the floor. And I was standing on the sidelines one day, and Wilt Chamberlain used to come down and work out with us even after he retired from the NBA. And he just grabbed me on the shoulder, and he said, look, why are you trying to chase these little guys up and down the court? He said, come with me. And he put me right in front of the basket. And he said, you see this basket? He said, just stop players from getting there. Make them miss their shot. Collect the rebound. Throw it up to the guard and let them go down the other end and score it. And you just cruise up to half court and kind of see what's going on. And it was this very light bulb type moment for me where I understood what my role was out on the floor. And even though I didn't play that much the next year at UCLA, I remembered that lesson. And when I got to the NBA, I said, you know what, I can do one thing well. I can block shots and play defense. Let me just focus on that, and I'll build from there. Well, Frank Layden with the Jazz was changing the culture of the team at that point from a kind of up-tempo run-and-gun style to more one that was defensively oriented and running an opportunity. And I fit perfectly into that. He parked me under the basket there in the key. And we played a very aggressive, switching, shifting defense. And I had some great players on my team that could run the floor, like Adrian Dantley and Ricky Green, and I just got rebounds and threw the ball to them. And Darrell Griffith, and they went down the other end and scored it. And we ended up kind of getting ourselves out of the cellar. And in the next year, winning the division for the first time in team history, making the playoffs for the first time in team history, and we had 4 individual statistical leaders in the NBA, which has not been done since.
Yeah, that's truly incredible. And I mean, we talk about the role. I think figuring out your role from a legend like Wilt Chamberlain must have been pretty cool. But obviously now the game has changed. I mean, we're talking about back in the 80s from being a kind of a big man centers league where the league was dominated by centers, frankly. And now we see people in the NBA who are just pulling up from half court from the logo. It seems like a bunch of guard 3-point shooters. So do you think this change has been beneficial or detrimental to basketball and to the NBA as a whole?
Oh, I think it's been very, very beneficial. You just saw the influx of international players kind of starting in the late 80s and continuing on till today, and it's a much more diverse base of players to draw from around the world with unique skills, and the game has continued to change and evolve as well. And so you now see guys like, a Dirk Nowitzki who's 7 foot that can shoot it out on the floor.
Yeah, crazy.
And, Kevin Durant who's like a prototypical basketball player now can do everything.
Yeah.
I think it's been great for the game, and it's the popularity of the game has never been greater, and continues to improve. And you look at the values of a lot of the NBA franchises now. I mean, they've just gone up dramatically in the last 6-7 years. Like I was reading an article the other day about the Warriors that I think started out at $500 million or a little less than that. Maybe I can't remember exactly what the number was, but now through digital marketing and everything else, their value is up to $3 billion, and that's just remarkable. And that's just since 2010. I think it's obviously working.
I mean, yeah, of course, the Warriors, because they've gotten so good so fast, it seems like, I'm sure their value has skyrocketed for sure. And we talk about, like I said earlier, like you said earlier, you kind of got that key advice from Wilt Chamberlain. So I'm sure that was quite a moment that stood out. But how was it going up against some of the greatest centers of all time? We talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We talk about some of these other players. So do you have any other particular moments that stand out?
Well, I played in a great era. I came into the NBA with guys like Bob Lanier and Kareem and Artis Gilmore, and then we moved into Patrick Ewing and David Robinson and probably my biggest nemesis, Hakeem Olajuwon. All those guys were just such great players. And just imagine going one night next to the next to the next. Like, it's okay, you got Hakeem tonight. Tomorrow we got Patrick Ewing. Next day we got Kareem. Day after that we got David Robinson. It was a different game for sure, and the team relied on me a lot to stop those guys, and so it was a great era, and I think probably of all of them, Hakeem was the biggest challenge because he came from a soccer background, so he had very quick feet as a center. In fact, I believe one year, it was around the late 80s, he led the NBA in both block shots and steals as a 5-man, which was just remarkable back then, and so we had some great rivalries and a lot of fun, and it was just a great era to have been a part of the NBA.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, myself, looking back at all the highlights from that era, it's kind of crazy to see, one, just how much the game has changed to now, but two, just how incredible the players were back then, and to have been a part of that, I'm sure that was really cool looking back. And then lastly, Mark, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self now that you're looking back at your career post-NBA now? What would you tell yourself if you could?
I think looking back at that, and I get asked that question frequently, that I would say just to relax and understand that life is a process. I'm just a little over 60 years old now, and looking back, you can see how everything's unfolded in perfect timing, and be a little kinder to yourself when you're young, and especially in today's world of instant gratification and digital. Everybody thinks they need to be an expert at everything. Like right now, the truth of the matter is that the skill and the journey of wisdom and everything else takes time as you develop, and just to be a little kinder and nicer to yourself along the way, because it's all unfolding as it should, and you can't really rush the process.
Right, and at surface level, because obviously we don't have enough time to go into it as in depth, but can you kind of describe at surface level what are the commitments of a winning team? How does that process work?
Sure. So it starts really with yourself, and then kind of extends out to the people around you. So the first commitment is really about knowing your job, doing that one thing you're excellent at, and not worrying about the things you're not good at, but focusing more on your strengths. And I share a story that with an interaction I had with Wilt Chamberlain one day. Number two is doing what you've been asked to do. It's about execution. It's about finding out what people really want from you. Number three is about making people look good. That the better you make people look good around you, the better you're going to look to them. And the last one is about really protecting your teammates, really being there for them, letting people know that you have their back.
Right, yeah, and I mean those values definitely like coincide all together, making the perfect workings of a winning team for sure. Now, you also mentioned, I mean, playing and having an interaction with Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, you played in a time in the NBA where it featured some of the league's greatest centers. So how does it feel knowing that you were able to make that strong of an impact, make an all-star team during that era, and play against some of the game's greatest?
Well, if you know anything about my story, I didn't start out really wanting to be a basketball player. I was
Right.
an auto mechanic at age 21, and as I was, kind of coached back into being a basketball player, and then eventually going on to UCLA and playing in the NBA for 12 years, I came in at a great era in the early 80s with guys like Bob Lanier and Artis Gilmore and Kareem and all the way through to, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and everybody else in between. And so it was a great time to play in the NBA because there were just so many outstanding players at that time, just legendary players that I got to play against. And, it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean that transition from like you say, I mean, really focusing on auto mechanics and then going to UCLA, getting coached up, then going to the NBA, and then finally, I mean, making an all-star team, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. How were you kind of able to kind of just take the bull by the horns, really, and transition into an elite basketball player?
Well, I always kept working, and Wilt Chamberlain, grabbed me one day in the men's gym at UCLA and said, stop chasing all the little players that are faster than you, but park your rear end underneath the basket and block shots and stop players from getting there, and that's something you can be really great at. And I embraced that, and it's the one thing on the court that I could be really, really good at, and continue to focus on that. And when you get to the NBA, you really don't know what kind of condition you need to be in. You just haven't experienced it. And so I doubled down when I got to the NBA and really hit the weight room and spent more time running and learning the game, listening to the coaches, and trying to find out that find that one little place for me out on the court where I could hang. And defense was the name of the game for me. And I just kept working at it, and I was really good at it. I was really good at defending the basket, really good at stopping guys, like Walter Davis from getting to the basket. And so that worked well for me, and ended up being a great career. Lasted a lot longer than I thought I would, and ended up making a home for myself here in Utah in the process.
Right, yeah. I mean, pretty cool also that you were able to spend your entire career with one team in the Jazz. So that's definitely really cool as well. Now, I mean, like I said, playing against some of the game's greatest centers. Now, in today's NBA, the league has really shifted from a league full of dominant centers to quick guards, three-point shooting. So what can you kind of attribute that to, and what have you seen in how the game has kind of evolved over time?
Well, the game has evolved because I think largely because the international influence, and it's also because players have become even more specialized in my era. And the three-point line has become a much bigger deal.
Right.
When I played, we had Darrell Griffith on our team, who I think he shot 33% from the three-point line, and that was considered excellent at that point in time. Now LeBron shoots like 45% from the three-point line, and so it's become a much bigger aspect of the game, and it's caused, I think, coaches and general managers to think more about, I need more guys out there, and the inside game isn't quite as important as it was, because now it's more slashing and cutting as opposed to pounding it into low post. That being said, though, when it comes to playoff time, everyone is still looking for the big defensive stopper or some way to shut down other teams. So I think there's still a place for the big man, but to your point, the Dirk Nowitzkis and people like that are the more versatile three-point shooters seems to be the name of the game at the moment. Although I'm still going to throw out Rudy Gobert with the Jazz right now, because I think he's got a little bit of both going on. He's not really a three-point shooter, but he's got a nice jump shot game, and he's pretty effective inside, and he's tremendous at the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I think a lot of people can definitely take a page out of your book in terms of all of the different endeavors you've kind of been a part of since your basketball career at least ended. Well, Mark, thank you again so much for coming back on the show. Where can fans go to get more information or just to connect with you?
My website, 7foot4.com, and you can find my book, The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team, at online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc.
Well, there you go, guys. Make sure to go check out the book, check out the website as well. Lots of great info, and I'm sure you guys all need some of that in your life. Thanks again, Mark. All right, everyone, the Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio AM 1060 will be right back after this.
If you're looking for a fabulous Southwest Desert staycation or daycation destination, check out the Four Seasons Resort Scottsdale at True North. Situated in the scenic foothills of North Scottsdale, this luxurious retreat is perfect for a sun-filled winter getaway. Guests enjoy spacious, newly renovated guest rooms and suites all feature breathtaking towering cacti and dramatic rock boulder views. Amenities include a well-appointed spa and fitness center with guided meditation walks and yoga hikes, all perfect ways to rejuvenate. The resort's inviting pool with negative edge waterfalls is also custom designed for relaxation with private cabanas and refreshing poolside cocktails. In the evening, indulge in acclaimed dining with James Beard Award-nominated chef Samantha Sands as she creates bright and flavorful contemporary Spanish cuisine. Nearby, enjoy priority privileges on the renowned courses of True North Golf Club or set out for a desert hike right from the resort's grounds. For more information, visit fourseasons.com/Scottsdale.
You ready to hoop it up?
This is Happenings on the Hardwood.
All right, guys, as always at the end of the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio AM 1060 Phoenix, it's all about that basketball. It's all about that bass, as the song says. But we're gonna move on to some hardwood talk, and we're pretty diverse here on the Sports Watchdog Radio Show, and the fact that we kind of hit all levels of the sport, right? So I'm going to start with high school, and namely, I'm talking about Sierra Canyon. It's the high school team everyone's talking about. It's LeBron James' son, Bronny James. It's Dwayne Wade's son, Zaire Wade. And it's BJ Boston, 5-star. So, I mean, these kids are number 3 in the country according to Max Preps and have 15 games that are being broadcast by ESPN this season. That's more than some college teams have, okay? When you put that in perspective, it's like, wow, this high school team that's led primarily by a lot of high school freshmen with really famous, obviously, dads who are obviously paving their own legacy. These kids are, at least. It's pretty remarkable. They play Montgomery, a San Diego-based team, and absolutely just thrash them in the entire game. The final score 91-44, and it's kind of unbelievable. They only allowed 5 points in the entire first quarter. Like, Montgomery literally scored 5 points, which, when you think about it, that's hard to do. That's hard to not score like more than double digits in an entire quarter. It's just kind of an attribution to the level of defense that this Sierra Canyon team is going to play this year, and as well as the impact that this sold-out stadium, no matter where, if it's going to be home or away, no matter what kind of impact it's going to have on the actual playing ability of these kids. And, Sierra Canyon literally had a media day. Like a full-on NBA-style media day. 1,600 people came to this high school basketball game. It's just really cool to see that such a large turnout, obviously, and a final score of 91-44. That's something else. Now, on to the college scene, Arizona locally at least. ASU in their last game against Rider started off a bit slow, but with the defensive efficiency of Jalen House and Remy Martin kind of combining helps them pull away. In the end, Jalen House comes in and immediate presence, made his presence felt, and it showed up in the stat sheet, especially in the plus-minus, where he was like a plus 36 for the game. Just truly a really great performance all the way around. It is a bit concerning, however, that the 2 forwards that ASU brought in from the JUCO ranks in Andre Allen and Khalid Thomas have not gotten a lot of run yet, and these have been 2 blowouts now to Central Connecticut State and now Rider. And in this last game, 92-55 victory. It's a complete blowout. But, Rob Edwards has been shooting the ball well. Romello White, Tayshaun Cherry getting their groove a little bit again after their suspension for the Colorado game that was in China, which obviously ASU lost, as I've talked about before. And really the transfer of Uros Plavsic to Tennessee really kind of hurt their front court depth, so it left them scrambling. And I mean, we're going to have to see if those two guys can get in a better groove with everything. But I think Jalen House and Jalen Graham have really impressed so far, just in terms of two true freshmen coming in, probably a bit undersized for both of their respective positions, but making an impact in these games early on. Now, for U of A, they had a little bit of a closer contest against South Dakota State in their last game, and it's a little bit not really concerning, just because, I mean, the true freshmen who were so highly touted have been playing very well. I mean, Nico Mannion throws down a vicious dunk yesterday, and it's really all anybody was talking about in terms of, like, this is a kid who balled out at Pinnacle, and was it going to translate to the college level? Some people didn't really know. But hey, it's worked out so far, and I think Josh Green, Zeke Naji have all played really well, but this was a little bit closer. I mean, South Dakota State now sitting at 4-4, a 500 team. U of A remains undefeated. They're 14th in the country at 6-0, but I mean, this was literally like a 7-point game, 71-64, the final score there. Now, granted, South Dakota State was a tournament team last year, but they lose some important pieces, and now they probably will be outside of that scope this year. But I mean, U of A, I mean, they got the talent. Okay, Zeke Naji has played unbelievably well. Josh Green and Nico Manning have played extremely well and versatile as well. So, I mean, this is a team where they're going to be scary as they get more comfortable and as Pac-12 play hits. I mean, the Pac-12 as a whole is slated to probably be better than last year. I know, I mean, this past week's results were not the most promising in the fact that Omaha beats Washington State 85-77. Coastal Carolina beats Utah 79-57. I mean, Arizona only wins by 7. Duke thrashes Cal, which, I mean, I guess that's to be expected, number one team in the country, and Cal has been a bottom feeder in the Pac-12 for the last few years, 87-52, that final. Stanford took care of business, beating William & Mary 81-50. But, I mean, probably the worst result of this past week was UCLA losing a bye game to Hofstra by 10, 88-78. And as John Rothstein, College Basketball Insider, would say, the epitome of brutality. Now, that's a great slogan, great descriptor for kind of the Pac-12 as a whole this past week. Now, ASU is on the road traveling to Connecticut for a tournament. They're going to be taking on St. John's, the team who they bounced out of the NCAA tournament first four last year, and it's back-to-back seasons now where ASU has made the first four game in the tournament. Granted, still back-to-back tournament appearances. They lose their first year to Syracuse. They win the next year against St. John's and then get blown out by Buffalo. And this is a team now where they're going to be trying to make a statement against St. John's because St. John's loses Shamori Pons, who was their go-to guy last year. He carved up ASU in the first four game, but ASU still found a way to win. ASU's makeup is a lot different this year. No Zylan Cheatham, no Lugens Dort. It's a team that is a lot more guard heavy, I feel like, and the front court depth, like I said before, is kind of lacking. So we're going to see if they can get the job done against a Power 5 opponent, and they already lost to Colorado this year, and Remy Martin said he was upset about that because he, at ASU, had never lost a game in November, and so he's kind of playing with an extra chip on his shoulder because of that, loses the game to McKinley Wright, but if ASU finds a way to beat St. John's, and the other game goes like many think it will between Massachusetts and Virginia, then ASU will be slated to play against the reigning defending national champions Virginia, who have limited opponents to like 30 points per game this year. Okay, that's remarkable defense. And ASU is going to have to find a way, to boost the program their national presence by hanging in there against a very well-established Virginia squad who, yes, lost some pieces, but still has the makeup of a championship contending team. And ASU is going to have to find its identity quick if it's going to want to stay kind of in contention with those guys. Now, on to the NBA. It was kind of a lackluster week, I would say. I mean, in terms of the storylines, the Suns drop another disappointing one to the New Orleans Pelicans, who have been slumping lately. And, I mean, the Suns started off so hot, and it's kind of been a downward not spiral completely, but the last couple of games haven't been as promising as the beginning of the season. Monty Williams is going to have to kind of get the energy back up in the building. I think Kelly Oubre needs to get back that confidence. Devin Booker's been playing like an all-star in my opinion. The loss of Ricky Rubio is really hurt just because, Javon Carter is not the playmaker that Ricky is. Ricky Rubio is averaging 8 assists per game. And Javon Carter brings a defensive presence that I think Ricky doesn't. But at the same time, Ricky Rubio, you can't make up his dishing ability as well as the scoring output that he produces on a nightly basis as well, because he does make everyone better. But at the end of the day, Melo back in the league, Mason in the studio, Sports Watchdog in your car, airwaves on fleek. But that's going to do it for our show today, guys. Really appreciate you guys listening in.
Well, that's a wrap, everyone. Anybody wanting to connect with me, the Sports Watchdog, on Twitter can do so at @SportsWatchdog, and on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well at The Sports Watchdog. So until next time, keep your eye on the ball.
The Sports Watchdog.
The Sports Watchdog, Mason Kern.